sun was sinking low over the Carson Plains, its dying light bleeding through the jagged clouds and setting the dust ablaze. The air was dry, heavy with the scent of sagebrush and worn leather, and the world seemed to hum with the quiet ache of endings. Lila Hayes stood in that fading light, her hands gripping a length of frayed rope, her breath shallow from hours of labor. Before her towered the broken windmill, her father's pride, her last memory of him before the fever took him last winter. It had once sung with the wind, its blades shining silver in the morning sun. Now, the structure leaned crookedly, rust streaking down its frame like dried blood. She'd been working since dawn, trying to fix it with what little strength she had left. The bolts refused to turn. The wood splintered at her touch. Sweat and dirt streaked her face, her sleeves torn, her palms raw, yet she kept pulling, tugging, tightening, as though sheer will might restore what time had already claimed. She whispered through clenched teeth, a promise to the man buried on the hill behind the ranch house. "I'll fix it, Pa. I swear I will." The sound of hooves broke through her vow, low and steady, like the heartbeat of the land itself. She froze. Only one man rode that slow. The rope slipped from her hands as she turned. Eli Carson. He rode his gray mare up the rise, dust curling around him like smoke. His hat sat low over his brow, shadowing his eyes, and the long coat he wore flapped softly against the horse's flanks. He had that quiet power about him, the kind that never needed to raise a voice. Folks said he was as stubborn as the land and twice as hard to change. Lila wiped her face quickly, though there was no hiding her exhaustion. Eli stopped his horse a few feet from her and dismounted, boots hitting the ground with a thud. For a moment he said nothing, only looked at the leaning windmill and then at her. "You've been at this all day," he said finally, his tone low, steady as the plains wind. "You'll tear your hands apart before that thing ever stands straight again." "I can fix it," she said. Her voice trembled with fatigue but carried an iron beneath it. "It's just rust and age. It can be fixed." Eli glanced at the bent frame, the half-rotted wood. "It's not just rust and age. It's gone, Lila. There's nothing left in it worth saving." She stepped forward, anger rising sharp and fast. "You don't get to say that. You didn't build it. You didn't watch him pour his life into it." "I watched him die trying to hold on to things that were already gone," Eli said quietly, "same way you're doing now." The words hit her harder than she wanted to admit. She turned away, blinking fiercely against the sting in her eyes. The wind tugged at her hair, whipping it across her face. She wanted to scream, to tell him he was wrong. But deep down she knew he wasn't. Still she couldn't let go. Not yet. Not when everything else she'd had was already gone. The cattle sold, the barn half empty, the house crumbling. The windmill was the last piece of her father's dream, the last thing that tied her to who she was before the world turned cold. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't just let it fall." Eli stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "Then what are you holding on for? Him or yourself?" She didn't answer. Her throat closed around the words. Eli let out a long breath and looked at the rope still dangling from the windmill's base. Then he reached down, picked it up, and started tying it to the saddle horn of his mare. Lila blinked, confused. "What are you doing?" He met her eyes, his face unreadable. "Helping you finish it." "Finish it?" He gave the rope a sharp tug, testing its weight. "Pull it down. You said you wanted to fix it. Sometimes the only way to fix something is to start over. You can't rebuild on rot." Lila's chest tightened. The thought of tearing it down made her stomach twist. "No," she said, shaking her head. "I can't destroy what's left of him." Eli's voice softened, barely more than a murmur. "Lila, he ain't in the wood or the metal. He's in you. What you build next, that's how you keep him alive." Her lips parted, but no words came. The weight of his gaze pinned her in place. There was no judgment there, only quiet truth. She looked up at the windmill, the crooked blades catching the last rays of sunlight, creaking faintly as the wind passed through. It did look like a ghost now, hollow and broken. The moment stretched long between them until finally Lila gave a slow, trembling nod. Her hands found the rope again, her fingers brushing his. His touch was warm, grounding. Together they fastened the line, wrapped it around a fence post for leverage. Eli looked at her once more. "You ready?" She swallowed hard. "I don't know." "That's all right," he said. Do it anyway. The words sank deep. Lila drew a shuddering breath and gripped the rope tight. Pull it down, she whispered. Finish it. Eli gave the horse a nudge. The rope went taut, creaking under the strain. The windmill shuddered, groaned, and then, slowly, painfully, began to fall. Rusted bolts popped free. Wood cracked. The ground shook as the frame crashed down in a cloud of dust and splinters. The sound echoed across the valley, fading into the wind. When it was done, all that remained was the wreckage of what once was. Lila stood frozen, staring at the ruin. The air felt hollow. She couldn't breathe. Her knees gave out and she sank to the dirt, covering her face with shaking hands. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. Eli stood beside her, his hat in his hands, eyes lowered. He didn't speak for a long while, just let the quiet settle between them. Then softly he said, "You did it." She shook her head. "I destroyed it." "No," he said gently. "You freed yourself." Lila looked up at him, her face streaked with tears and dust. For the first time she saw it. The faint warmth behind his rough exterior. The quiet understanding of a man who'd lost and rebuilt more times than he could count. He wasn't just talking about a windmill. Eli offered her his hand. She hesitated, then took it. His grip was strong, steadying. He pulled her to her feet, and together they stood before the wreckage. The wind picked up, carrying away the dust, revealing beneath it a patch of green, the first hint of life after years of drought. Lila stared at it, her chest tightening with something that wasn't grief this time, but hope. "What now?" she asked softly. Eli smiled, just barely. "Now we build it your way. Her way, not her father's, not anyone else's." The words stirred something fierce and alive inside her. She turned to the remains of the windmill and took a slow, deep breath. The pieces were broken, yes, but the wood could be repurposed, the metal reshaped. From the ashes of what had fallen, something new could rise. As they walked back toward the barn, the last light of sunset stretched across the fields, turning everything it touched to fire. The wind carried the faint sound of the horses' hooves, the whisper of hope returning to the land. Behind them, the fallen windmill lay quiet, but it no longer looked like a grave marker. It looked like the beginning of something new. Later, after the stars had climbed over the horizon and the world had gone still, Lila sat on the porch steps of her father's old house. The night was cool, the moonlight silver over the plains. Eli leaned against the railing beside her, silent as ever. For a while, neither spoke. The sound of the crickets filled the space between them. She finally broke the quiet. "You really think I can rebuild it?" "I don't think," he said. "I know. You just needed to let go first." She smiled faintly, a fragile, tired smile. "You make it sound so easy." He chuckled softly, the sound low and warm. "Ain't nothing easy about it. But sometimes the hardest things are the ones worth doing." Lila looked out across the dark fields, the moonlight glinting off the broken metal of the fallen windmill. It no longer hurt to see it. For the first time, she didn't see failure. She saw a blank page. The wind shifted, brushing her hair back from her face. She turned to Eli, and in his eyes she saw a reflection of what she'd been too afraid to believe in before. Possibility. Change. A future. "Thank you," she said quietly. He tipped his hat. "Didn't do much. You did enough." They sat there until the night deepened and the stars thickened in the sky, 1,000 bright fires watching over the plains. Somewhere in the dark, an owl called. The world felt new again, raw and uncertain, but alive. When Lila finally rose to go inside, she paused at the door, looking back once more at the fallen windmill. A part of her heart still ached for her father, for everything they'd lost, but another part, small and fierce, was already dreaming of what could be built in its place. Eli watched her go, the ghost of a smile on his lips. He knew what she didn't yet realize, that sometimes it took tearing down the past to make room for a better kind of tomorrow. Out on the plains, the wind picked up again, singing low through the grass where the windmill once stood. The sound was soft but full of promise, a song not of endings, but of beginnings. And though the land still bore its scars under the moonlight, it finally looked ready to heal.